This is Paul Levy here. In this broadcast, I'd like to explore with you the balance that we have as teachers that are teaching online between the amount of screen time we're actually using up and how that can take its toll on us if we're certainly not used to doing that. And this also relates to activities you could do with your students as well. But I'll leave you to decide how you might adapt some of this. I'm going to start with a kind of theory, and if I gave it a name, it would be called the theory of balance, or you might even call it the theory of counterparts in relation to teaching online. And this is going to be particularly of relevance to Waldorf teachers, and particularly, say, at younger ages, but even up to classes 9 and 10. The amount of screen time at school, in some schools, is almost zero. Children at the older ages start to learn how the technology works, start to use it perhaps in some of their projects, and we know that of course they use it at home. They're very digitally native, a lot of those children, but as we go lower and lower down the school and we're forced to teach online, we have been looking at the need to just use this technology, which can be anything from email to audio connection by phone, by audio conference call, to video, to use that very mindfully and very carefully. And so, if you're hardly using the technology with video, you may still find yourself turning on the screen, looking at text messages, looking at emails, reading them, making sense of them. And we can still find that alongside admin work and so on, that we're spending a lot of time online. And we're doing that right now in a time of fear and uncertainty and concern and worry. And some people have found ways of dealing with that better than others. But certainly as a teacher, you're teaching into a virtual classroom without physical sight of those families, without connection with the children that you normally have. And things can be going on in those families. People can be showing symptoms. There can be news of relatives that unfortunately, have even died from this disease. And all of that has to be kind of taken into account, not just, of course, in the well-being of the families, but in your well-being as a teacher who is literally stretched across physical distance and can only use this technology to really connect with your students and their families. And so we can find ourselves kind of squinting at that, trying to look as if it's more distant than it really is. And even though we may not be squinting with our physical eyes, we are using our kind of inner senses to try and still see what's going on, feel what's going on, and to do the right thing. And so the theory of balance is one you probably heard before, just generally around making sure that for every hour of screen time that we have, we balance that with time to come off it, time to rest, time to relax. And where I talk about the theory of counterpart, it's the idea that there is something in the physical world that you can do to come down from, to recover from, to offset the effect of screen time on you, particularly when you're using a method that isn't really rooted, particularly in younger children, rooted at all in the idea that we should be teaching using digital technology. Now, of course, Waldorf education doesn't deny digital technology. In fact, quite the opposite. It embraces it, but just at the right time when people are waking up into their adulthood and need to learn some of the skills, not for specific jobs, but for being strong and confident for whatever careers those children decide on. And digital skills are very much part of them embracing the real world. But in terms of much of the younger classrooms, we're finding ourselves as teachers then doing online stuff in order to teach. So here are just a few ideas for you to consider, and you may have already been using some of these, and I would ask other teachers to share experiences as well. And we can even learn from how the families that we're dealing with are coping with this stuff too. Here's the counterpart idea, that if, for example, you have been typing a lot with your fingertips, then do something with your hands. And if you do something with your hands, like grasping some clay or making some bread and feeling dough, much more with the palms, the whole embodied nature of your hand rather than fingertips, there's a counterpart. A similar thing about fingertip activity of any kind is that you can use any kind of artistic form that is actually the counterpart to just the narrow tapping on screens, working with much softer materials rather than the hardness of Gorilla Glass. And counterpart can be that you've been using your eyes and you've been squinting, so you could literally go over to the window and just kind of have a very, very broader look, not trying to pick anything out, but just allowing the beautiful colors of the sky or nature that you can see. You can go into your garden if you've got one, but you can even go over just to a plant and just take it in as a whole rather than try and focus almost spider-like on specific parts or details. Counterpart of narrowness is broadness. You may have also found that I notice this as I'm talking and looking into a screen, that we sort of go into a kind of sense that this isn't the usual way that we are. Breathing can change when you're very addicted to the phone, but actually for a lot of people it's kind of very, very shorter breath. Things often change quickly on the screen, and when we type fast with our fingertips, our breathing can respond. So all kinds of breathing exercises, things that go a bit slower, that sweep a bit longer. You can use Eurythmy, you can listen to music, you can just move about the room doing some exercise. That again is the opposite really of the squint, and is opposite of the breath that can go with the shortness to breathing through the nose, holding it out through the mouth. And there are so many much better qualified people than me to show you how you can relax in that way from that kind of experience. So short breathing, obviously kind of longer breathing. You can also find that you've just been in your head a lot in intellectual thoughts. So any kind of imaginative work, and then physical work and drawing activity that's much more free flowing, where your will is just in the drawing rather than in your intention to make decisions. And so that's the general principle. Of course, you can do that in the classroom too, that if the children have been searching something online, then get them to go and do something physical that's definitely not online. And that's the theory of counterpart. And underlying that, the theory of balance is for every hour we spend online. I mean, I would suggest this is only an instinct after many, many years of working in this area. There is a little bit of research that we need more time to come off particularly powerful digital experiences. I mean, gaming is an example, watching a powerful movie. There's nothing like the counterpart of then just going for a walk or doing some meditation. So look at your digital day, look at the things you've got planned for tomorrow, and build in time for activity that is the counterpart that helps you rebalance and sometimes do the opposite to bring the pendulum swinging from the extremes back to the healthy middle.